Okay, cousins, here's what I'm doing. Here's the book that I'm using and the recipe, which I think I all sent you, but it's the olive oil dough. And I'm going to go over a few things that I do. This is the yeast I use. Red Star. I get it in a really big package, like at Cash and Carry, and then I just stick it in the freezer in a Tupperware container. I get this at Cash and Carry too. This is the salad, like the salad. You have to have a container that does not have a tight lid. Sometimes it has a little hole at the end. That's fine too. I have one like that too. But this is the perfect size. It is a, what is it? It is a 36 pp, whatever that means. There you go. But this is the size I get. It's kind of like what you see at salad bars. So you definitely need one of those. And then what I have is I have everything here for you. And what I like to do, the first thing I like to do, now I am using my KitchenAid mixer, and then I'm going to use this attachment right here. But you could do it just with your hand and knead it in there really good. The trick is, whenever you touch the dough, make sure your hands are ice cold without a ring. Ice cold, and then that way it won't stick to your fingers. So we're going to go ahead and get started. The first thing I always do is I always make sure my hot water is hot enough. So we're going to turn on the hot water. Usually most taps, most hot is about 130 or 100 and hot water tank. So I like to get the water as hot as I can. Not too hot. I don't know if the recipe tells you or not what the temperature of your water should be. It just says lukewarm water. But what we're going to do is we're going to put 1.5 tablespoons of yeast in, and then equal part 1.5 tablespoon of salt. And then I use coconut sugar because I don't like to use the white sugar, but you could use coconut sugar. You could use honey if you wanted to use honey also. I use that, so I put that in there. So when I get to this stage, before I add anything else, I like to measure out my water. So now my water's hot enough, and it's 2 3/4 cups of hot water. Make sure it's 2 1/3. I need more. 2 3/4. And it's okay. You can always tell if it's too doughy. You can always tell that you've got too much hot water. So I like to then put the hot water in there. And what I actually prefer doing is allowing my yeast to kind of get happy with the sugar. And then it just kind of, you can see it, yeast is alive, and it's a good way to check to make sure that your yeast is good before you make the whole thing and then no yeast bad. So you can see that my yeast is, let's take a look here. You can see my yeast is starting to come alive already. It likes that. See, oh, bubble. I love the smell of yeast. Just saying. Let me get that back up. There it goes. All right. So then, once it, usually when I make white bread, just a regular white bread, I let it sit for 10 minutes before I do anything. And that's actually how you get rid of the first rise. You know how grandma used to, or not grandma, but they show on TV, they'd make the bread, then they'd let it rise, they'd punch it down, let it rise again. Well, you don't have to if you do the first rising like that. And then it calls for a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. And I don't use the light olive oil. I use just the regular olive oil because it has more of a flavor, a little bit more robust flavor. And so you can see that is finally really raising up, and it's active, it's happy. But I don't, you don't have to wait 5 minutes. I just like to make sure that my yeast is good And that's why I kind of let it sit in there just for a minute. And it actually gives my dough a little bit more bubbliness to it. And then all we're going to do here is, so we've added the water, the yeast, the salt, the sugar, and the olive oil. And now we're just going to add the flour. This is how easy this is. So it's 6.5 cups. So I always add my half cup first, because then I knew I did it. And then we are going to it's just a dump and go. It is that simple. So 1, 2, 3, and you don't pound down your flour, you just scrape it. 4, 5, 6. Now, if you were doing this with no mixer, you would just take a spoon and just start stirring it like crazy and get it mixed up. So I have this lovely thing. So we are going to lock that. Move it so you can see it. And we just want it mixed up is all we want. So you can see it's, my mixer's kind of like, so I'm gonna turn it up a little bit. When you have a mixer, that's it. That's it. That's all I mixed. So before I touch it, like I told you, you have to make sure that your hands are cold, because if I touch that, it will stick to my fingers. And I will have dough all over me. And it's also a great trick to when you're cleaning out your, see how it's falling off now? Because it's pretty wet. So when you're cleaning your bowls and everything like that, it's easier to get the dough off with, if you make the containers super cold or use cold water to get rid of it. It's not to say that you still don't get the stuff stuck to you, but you do. This is it. And I'm going to take it out of here. You can see it's nice and doughy. It smells wonderful. Sometimes I think that it even smells better when because I let the yeast, give it like a minute or two. And you can see it's still stuck to my fingers. But if I was and you don't need it, that's, no kneading, just mix it. And that is it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, see, and that comes off with cold water. It comes off really fast. I'm going to put this on. I'm going to let it rise for it usually takes about 2 hours. I let it rise. It doubles. It will like almost push this up. I'll show it to you later. And then once I don't do anything, then I just take that and I just take it. I don't punch it down. I just throw it into the refrigerator, and then you just pull out as you need whatever you want to make. This will make 2 huge plates of focaccia bread, 2 big things of focaccia bread. Enough to feed a lot of people. Bread bowls, all that kind of stuff. That book gives you a whole bunch of other ideas on there too. And again, this is the book. It's called Artesian Bread in 5 minutes per day. And that's it. Good luck. Love you guys.